Hi everyone, and welcome to this podcast on physical activity in the early years. And today I'll be your host, Seb Thorpe, and we are very pleased to welcome Sue Asquith with us, who'll be helping us explore this really exciting and inspiring topic. So we all know that physical education is crucial for young children's development, as it not only supports their physical health, coordination and motor skills, but it also has a direct impact on cognitive development and emotional well-being. And as I say, we're here with Sue Asquith today. We'll be talking about activities that can be made really fun, accessible and engaging. But we also know that at times that can be quite a challenge. So we'll be discussing and exploring ways in which earlier settings and childminders can create meaningful and enjoyable physical activities that provide fantastic opportunities for children. So Sue, you've got a wealth of experience supporting early years educators in creating dynamic environments. So firstly, thank you once again for being here with us today, and really looking forward to speaking on this really fantastic topic with you.
Thank you. Yes, it's a really interesting topic. I've got lots of experience with the early years from being a child myself and onwards into obviously childcare. So I'm looking forward to speaking to you about it.
Okay, so to begin with, Sue, how can physical activity support the general well-being of the children with which we work?
Okay, thank you. So physical development, firstly, is one of the prime areas, so fundamental to laying the foundations for children in terms of their lifelong learning, really. But thinking about why outside and why physicality is a really good idea, obviously it supports well-being. I've been at my desk all morning, and I know that maybe going out for a walk after recording this podcast would be a really good idea. Rest my eyes, rest my brain, gives me some connection with nature, gives me that fresh air and exercise. Potentially with children as well, it makes us maybe more hungry, so that maybe we eat nicely when it comes to lunchtime and tea time, and we eat our meals, which gives us a better appetite, and it helps us maybe to sleep more when it comes to our nighttime sleep as well. On the other side of the coin, if we think about children spending lots of time online, which potentially they do nowadays, this can obviously have a negative effect on well-being. It can negatively affect children's socialisation, obviously staring at a screen, not necessarily with somebody talking about the content and having a chat about it. It can sometimes impact communication and language. It's obviously something that's done mostly sitting still. So obviously that's an issue as well. And if you look at Ofcom's reports, which the last one was actually in April 2024, it shows us that 84% now of our 3 and 4 year olds are online at some stage in their lives. Maybe not in your earlier setting, but potentially at home. So an impact really then on maybe their behaviour. Obviously less physicality, less movement, maybe not practicing those fundamental movements that we need in early years as well. So lots to think about. Medical officers' information and their guidance is 180 physical minutes of activity every day. So if we try and balance out, obviously, being physical and being outdoor is much outweighs children's lives in terms of being online and screen time as well.
Absolutely. So in terms of outdoor learning, then thinking about that push to get the children outside and get them active with their peers, maybe in an independent type activity. What is the intent for that outdoor learning? What are the objectives?
Okay, so Ofsted talk about intent lots, and maybe if you want to look on the Foundation Years website, there's a blog that I wrote a couple of months ago that's called Curriculum Planning in the Early Years. And it talks about our intent. We need an intent behind everything that we're doing. So if we think about the outside, there's loads of intent. There's loads of learning possibilities that can come from being outside. If I'm in a setting, and I do obviously consultation visits and all sorts of visits to settings, if I ask somebody about what is your intention today, this morning, this afternoon for the children whilst you're playing outside, they tend to give me an example of, oh, it's a bit of fresh air, isn't it? And a chance to exercise so they're a bit calmer when they come back inside. But they don't potentially think about all that curriculum intent. So thinking about the prime areas and the specific areas of learning. There's so much that obviously can be learned outside that maybe can't be learned inside. We can have first-hand experiences as weather. There's chances to introduce new words, extend vocabulary to children with weather. And there's possibilities to think about the seasons. So when we think of our intent, we really need to think past, let's get the children out for some fresh air and exercise. Obviously, it's a really good thing, but we need to think about it on a much broader spectrum, really, and what is it that we can do.
Great, thank you, Sue. Really interesting breakdown of intent there and some fantastic examples of things that you've seen in settings. So I'm sure that'll be really helpful for many people. So thinking about those children then right at the very start of their journey, so babies, very, very young children, how can educators, including childminders, support outdoor activities for that age range?
We need to really, again, just think about kind of what's that intent. We need to support their physicality. We need to support their emotional well-being and mental well-being. And we know also that in the early years sets some of our lifelong patterns of behaviour. So we can get children to be outside and help them to enjoy the outside. Potentially those things that they learn in the early years, and those if we get into exercise and we get into those good habits, potentially they go on to inform what we do as an adult as well. So it's about thinking about the barriers, really, I suppose, when you're thinking about the babies especially. So potentially, are they going to be warm enough? Are they going to be dry enough, etc.? So there's all sorts of different clothing that you might want to have a look at, or maybe signpost parents to have a look at. Speaking to parents about, actually, we are going to be outside with all the children of all age groups every day. Unless the weather's really, really terrible. So if there's a weather warning, for example, and obviously it's going to be hazardous to health to be outside, that might be one thing that you might say on that one day, maybe it's too dangerous. But the rest of the time, we need those children to be outside. It's an EYFS requirement, but it also needs to be not just a tick box exercise. So maybe we need to speak to parents on induction that this is something we need to do. Maybe then that they can think when they're buying the all-in-ones for the babies, could they buy something that's waterproof? There are puddle suits out there that are quite waterproof. So if a child was maybe crawling around or sitting down outside, potentially it would keep them warm and dry. We need to think about our area, our enabling environments outside. And there are some really lovely, like cushioned work surfaces maybe that you could put down. Some nurseries that I've seen have got like a summer house that they open up, so it gives them a bit of protection from the weather if it's raining really hard, but obviously the children are still outside as well. Thinking about your outside spaces, so sometimes people have like small shelters, or they pull like canopy out of the side of the wall in various weathers, so that could maybe shelter babies from the rain if it's raining hard, or maybe even provide some shelter and some shade if it's summer and it's really, really hot. So there's no kind of nailed on, this is what you need to do to get babies out, really, but we need to just think about your outdoor areas. And sometimes we forget that actually our outdoor experience could be a walk out into the community. You could go to the local park, you could go and feed the ducks, whatever it is that might be outside, in the immediate area. Obviously, everything would need risk assessing, but there's various different ways that we can achieve that with babies. So I would say maybe speak to parents, consider warm clothes. Is it something that your setting can actually provide, or maybe start collecting? So when these babies start to grow out of their puddle suits, would parents maybe donate them to your setting so that the next baby who maybe haven't got one, you've got a spare one just in case?
Brilliant. Great idea. Thank you. So we've obviously discussed some of the challenges with the UK weather, which is something completely out of our control. Another potential barrier and challenge, more prominent in certain areas, thinking about the larger urban areas within England. In terms of outdoor space, how can settings that have either no or very limited outdoor space implement really engaging physical activity for their children?
Okay, so there's lots of inspiring practice again. So I'm lucky enough, obviously, to go to lots of different nurseries for various reasons. And as much as they learn from me potentially, and I give them ideas and support them, I sometimes think, wow, that is a really, really useful use of space, or I've never seen that before as well. So potentially, you know, I can kind of learn as much from these visits as they learn from me as well, which is really nice for me. But thinking, I've visited settings that don't have outdoor spaces. There are childminders maybe that don't have a garden, or they have a garden that maybe is not fit for purpose yet because maybe the fences aren't tall enough or whatever to keep children safe. So a couple of months ago, I was in a setting in London, and they'd used some balcony space in the upstairs of their setting. Obviously, you need to risk assess it. You need to make sure that anything that's got a table or anything that children could be used to obviously climb up and over the top are away from the balcony edge, and also maybe fixed to the ground. But really useful spaces that the adults had given children to be able to be outside. And it's not their single outside experience. Then they might go for a walk, they go to the library maybe, they might go see the local care home residents one day, they might go to the park another day, maybe to a farm or a local zoo or whatever. So there's lots and lots of different ways of doing this. Some of the people who don't have an outdoor space at all, you'll get to know maybe the bits in the community that you can go to that are child friendly. Obviously, like I said earlier, you need to think of risk assessments and the other people that might be using that space at that time as well. But there's lots of different ways of doing this. It's extra specially important for the children that don't have an outside space at home as well. So the children that perhaps live in an apartment or a flat that don't have that outdoor space that they can use, or maybe some of the children that do have a garden, but yet parents don't really facilitate play there. So it's extra important for us to think about building the cultural capital of the children that potentially don't have an outdoor space at home as well.
Okay, so to finish off then, Sue, have you got any other insights, other experiences that you've seen or heard about in relation to physical activity being implemented with a focus around the challenges of the seasons? I know we've touched on this briefly already, but anything else that's really stood out to you?
Yeah, I think overall, in terms of the UK weather, is again, just how tricky it is to kind of do that. But thinking about your specific outdoor area, some of them can get really, really boggy during winter and the wet weather. So obviously, lots of children playing out on a grassy surface, for example, it can get obviously really, really muddy really quickly. And there are people who potentially have put the fake grass down, but equally that can get really, really hot during summer. So just think about your spaces really, and how user friendly are they going to be. It might be a really good idea if you've got some funding maybe, or you've got some kind of leftover budget money maybe at some stage, to think about different surfaces maybe in different areas. Some nurseries are really lucky that they've got a garden for every age group. So there's a baby age group, toddler age group, preschooler age group. And then the staff in those rooms are responsible for setting up that garden space on a daily basis, maybe extending what they're learning inside and bringing it outside as well. Maybe focusing, for example, if we're going on a bear hunt, then maybe you could do the bear hunt and do a sensory trail outside. Those others need to share that space, and so almost on a rota basis. But if everybody's out at the same time, then obviously we need to think about those pre-mobile, non-mobile babies being in the firing line of a 3-year-old pounding in on a little trike or whatever. So we do have to really think about how we're going to share those spaces if you're sharing that space, and making sure that risk assessments are there as well. I mean, playing with the football or whatever, it can come over a small fence, can't it, into the other garden, and so it's just kind of having that common sense really, but also that risk assessment of the spaces that you do have, and thinking about how if you need to share that space or put certain activities out or use your areas really well, so that you can think about the shelter, the shade, and potentially the other children that might be using that as well.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you. It's been really wonderful to hear from your experiences there today. So as we wrap up session 1 of this podcast series, I want to extend once more my gratitude and thanks to Sue for sharing all of your experiences and expertise and insights with us today. Really appreciate that. And just to round up, as we know, physical activity is a fundamental part of childhood development. So it's really important that we continue to find creative and engaging ways to encourage movement in young people. We appreciate that there are challenges with that, but there's lots of innovative ideas and creative ways of working out there. So I really do encourage you to engage with the Foundation Years website. We do have, as Sue mentioned, resources and articles on the website that relate to that in addition to this podcast series. So thank you to the audience for once again watching our vodcasts, and thank you again for your dedication to enriching the lives of the young people that we work with. So Sue, thank you once again. Really appreciate your time today.